In this module, we're gonna cover round spirals. We like to think of round spirals as a great descent technique. They are typically the first thing that people do or try when they first start getting into aerobatics or thrill seeking or want to pull G's. We don't really like to think of them as an aerobatic maneuver for a few reasons, but one is just because of the inherent danger. The second one is that it's so easy, all you gotta do is pull brake to do it. So when we refer to the intensity of the spiral or measure our round spirals, we use degrees, and I'm gonna use my fancy little example here to show you what I mean. So I will refer to degrees to the horizon. So a typical spiral will go something like this if it's a left turn, and this would be about a 60-degree angle. That would be about a 60-degree angle, and that's that measurement from the horizon there. A steeper spiral would be pointing the nose down, and this would be about a 45-degree angle. This would be about a 30-degree angle, and this would be what we call a nose down spiral. You might also hear me say locked spiral, or a round spiral, full round spiral would be nose down, rotating around it. So 60, 45, 30, and round. We kind of have a standard or a party line among our pilots that any spiral that requires you to go beyond a 45-degree spiral, and you should be doing what's called an asymmetric spiral. See the module on asymmetric spirals for that, but that's a maneuver that requires quite a bit more skill. For now, we'll just talk about the round spirals and we'll show you all of them. The danger of executing round spirals or practicing round spirals or making a habit of doing round spirals is that all gliders will at some point take on a life of their own when pushed into a nose down spiral. Depending on its performance level, it may go nose down, make 2 turns, and then come out, which will be intense enough for you, or it may go nose down and do what's called locking in. There's really no way to tell until you've actually taken your glider with your wing loading and your conditions to that level. We don't like to practice taking, gliders to that level. And even in maneuvers courses with a coach over the water, they don't do that because, if the G's get so intense that you black out, there's nothing that a radio can do for you. Nobody can tell you reserve, The other danger of a round spiral that goes to that level, that nose down spiral, and believe it or not, even an advanced pilot can get into this situation where they're rotating around and they don't know which brake it is to stop it. Seriously, what brake do I stop this with right now? Right. All right. I'm dizzy. So by staying in touch with that outside brake as we go into that spiral, and linking up with that outside brake and keeping that angle in check, we can control exactly what angle the glider is going to go to. If we just go right in, take a wrap on the left side brake and just yank it in, the glider is going to go whoosh and rip right into a nose down spiral, and that's what's going to happen. But you can actually get away with doing a really intense spiral with, holding a little bit of that outside brake. But not only are you keeping it from going there, but if it does go full round, you remember, you have that muscle memory right there that, oh, that's the exit brake, that's the one. Oh, if it all goes bad, just nail that brake and I'll be out of it, You'll hear me constantly refer back to those smooth exits, and we always want you to hold yourself to that standard that you'll always do those smooth exits without a porpoise. There's 3 reasons for that. The first one is that if you are in the habit of making these big, large porpoising exits and you ever do anything like that in turbulence, your odds are you're gonna cause yourself a problem. The second is that practicing these smooth exits on heading gives you greater situational awareness and kind of planning skills, and it helps you even in low flying and in other areas in your flying. And the third is that it looks cool. So what else do you need? The type of smooth exit that I'm talking about from coming out of a spiral is that if I'm in a left spiral coming out, I'm going to initiate that exit by a little bit of right brake, but I'm not going to let it level out and translate all that energy into this big porpoise, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So coming out of a left spiral, we would give it a little bit of right brake, and then as it starts to smooth out, we'd stay in that left brake, keeping the bank angle in just a little bit so that it doesn't just roll out all of a sudden. So we bleed off the energy by giving it a little bit of outside brake, but maintaining the inside brake as we swing back under the glider. And if we can call our heading on every single exit and say, okay, every single exit, I'm going to exit on the same heading that I entered the maneuver in. And when you can do that, when you can call your heading and exit on that heading every single time, that's when you can start playing with those porpoise exits and seeing what you can get away with. But until then, I would challenge you to hold yourself to that standard of always calling your heading, trying to roll out on that heading without a big surge. We're going to go to a live comm demo of these round spiral techniques. We want you to remember those basic principles that you start all your turns with weight shift. You control your dive angle with the outside brake. Stay in touch with that outside brake. Exit each spiral on the same heading that you enter on. Remember, you want a smooth exit with no surge and try and strive for that. And never, 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 ever, ever go full round. So I'm going to do 2 intensities of round spiral and demonstrating a smooth exit where I roll out on a given heading. I'm going to go ahead and start that now. I'm going to look and lean hard, let the turn develop, and then start to come in with brake. Check my angle, and I kind of modulate it with outside brake and keep it from dipping too low on the horizon. As you can see, so that's like a 60-degree angle right there. A little bit more would be like 45, then a little bit more would be like a 30, right? Okay, little outside brake to slow it down, and then I'm going to come back in with the turn to finish out on heading with very little pendulum. Right on the heading I want. I'm going to go ahead and start that now. I'm going to look and lean hard, let the turn develop, and then start to come in with brake. Check my angle, and I kind of modulate it with outside brake and keep it from dipping too low on the horizon. As you can see, so that's like a 60-degree angle right there. A little bit more would be like 45, then a little bit more would be like a 30, right? Okay, little outside brake to slow it down, and then I'm going to come back in with the turn to finish out on heading with very little pendulum. Right on the heading I want. All right, so this time I'm going to do a little bit stronger spiral. A little bit, the angle compared to the horizon will be a little bit shallower. So that was a 45 to 60 degree angle. This one will be more like a 45 to 30. All right, so same thing. Take a wrap on this side if you need to, and I'm going to look and wait till I'm out of that thermal. And I'm going to look and lean, wait for the turn to develop, then come in with brake. And that's a pretty good angle right there. I'm going to keep that, and that's a pretty good descent rate. And I can modulate the brakes. And then I'm going to roll out on heading, so I let off a little bit, but I continue with the turn all the way around on heading, and I roll out without a pendulum. Woohoo! All right. Look, and wait till I'm out of that thermal. And I'm going to look and lean, wait for the turn to develop, then come in with brake. And that's a pretty good angle right there. I'm going to keep that, and that's a pretty good descent rate. And I can modulate the brakes. And then I'm going to roll out on heading, so I let off a little bit, but I continue with the turn all the way around on heading, and I roll out without a pendulum. Woohoo! All right. Next thing we're going to show you is an example of how not to do it, and we're actually going to allow the glider to go into a nose down spiral, and then we're going to exit it quickly just so you can see exactly how fast that can happen and how fast that can ramp up. One of the dangers of the symmetrical spiral or stabilized spiral or round spiral is that the glider can go full round and it'll accelerate really fast, and depending on its performance level, it may just lock in. So this is a B glider, and it should, if it went full round, it should recover on its own within like 6 seconds, which is a long time to be pulling that many G's. But I just want to demonstrate what it looks like when you go from a steep spiral to a round spiral, a full round. So look and leaning, and I'm just going to kind of do an aggressive one. And I'm not going to use outside brake, and there it is. So it happens quick, you know. You're sitting here doing this steep cool guy spiral where the glider is staying at that 30-degree angle to the horizon, and without checking outside brake, it dives all the way down, and then it accelerates really fast, and it takes that rotational inertia and just spins it around and applies it to G's. So that one didn't get that out of hand. I stopped it pretty much right away. But you can see the difference between the stabilized steep spiral, which is a good descent technique, versus that, which is dumb. You know, the round spiral, there's no reason to let it go to that. It burns altitude quickly, it's disorienting, and it can G you out depending on, if you have less sleep and you're not really physically fit and you're hungover and your mind isn't in it, you could G out and, die. It's happened before. So that's enough about round spirals. The best way to prevent that type of nose down, out of control, locked out spiral from happening is to never practice them beyond a certain level. So make a deal with yourself that, hey, I'm not gonna do round spirals beyond this intensity right here, 45 degrees. That's what I look at. If it goes to this, greater intensity, whatever your number is, maybe when you're starting off, you don't take your spirals beyond wingtip to the horizon. Maybe you don't take them beyond 60 degrees. And then eventually you don't take them beyond 45 degrees. And then I typically use 30 degrees as I don't go beyond that. If I'm gonna go beyond that, that's when I start working on those asymmetric spirals. Round spirals do have their place in learning to practice exits and just learning the dynamics of the glider in a spiral exit and entry. But I think we've shown it as an example of a stepping stone up to those asymmetric spirals, which will be covered in another module. Once you learn the asymmetric spirals and nail them, there's not going to be a whole lot of reasons to do a stabilized round spiral for more than a turn. While round spirals are fairly simple to perform, we can't stress enough that they are dangerous. Be sure to go at your own pace, practice at high altitudes, and revisit these fundamentals in these videos to build a solid foundation for your progression into the more advanced maneuvers.
If you've been paramotoring for any amount of time, you're sure to have had the desire to seek the thrill and satisfaction that freestyle maneuvers can give you. Believe it or not, most advanced pilots have learned to do basic acro on their own, generally taking several years to do so, and often with some scary learning moments in between. Freestyle paramotoring can be safe. The key is having the right mindset and following a natural progression. Freestyle 101 is presented as a sequential video series providing insights into the basics, low-level flying, spirals, wingovers, and asymmetric spirals. Shane Denherder from Team Fly Halo explains the drills and breaks down the maneuvers to help you safely progress at your own pace. This video series gives you an understanding of the maneuvers, a set of guidelines for safe practice, and milestones to meet before moving on. Freestyle 101 is intended for beginner to intermediate pilots to use as a reference to work from as they continue into advanced flying styles throughout the years. It's also a great training aid for instructors wishing to advance their own skills and set a standard for how to translate that knowledge to their up-and-coming pilots. Freestyle 101, the natural progression for aerobatic flight. Available by digital subscription through the Fly Halo Knowledge Center this summer.